Folks, you're extremely welcome to today's webcasts with BrightWork and Eastridge, which is about using SharePoint to manage work, projects, and portfolios. In terms of today's agenda, we're just quick opening, which is just this slide, and we'll first talk about, after the opening and agenda, why SharePoint for collaborative project management. And we'll do a demo of out-of-the-box SharePoint for project management. Then we'll talk about the boundaries. You know, what do you not get out of the box? And then we'll talk about how SharePoint can be extended or enhanced. And we'll give you 4 different scenarios, explain them, and demo those as well. So if you think about it, it's why SharePoint? What do you get out of the box? Where are the boundaries, and how and what might you do to extend it? And we'd be happy to take questions all the way through. So I will not keep stop asking and say, would you like to ask questions? I know you're not shy, so just shoot a question when you think of it. So why SharePoint? This screenshot, and we'll go in and look at the software in a minute, this screenshot is actually of a SharePoint site. And if you think of running a project, then what you would probably think would be, well, you know, number one, I need a bunch of tasks. Maybe I need a list of issues. Maybe I need a list of risks. So you could almost think of a project as breaking down into a set of lists. You also need reports, number 2, on a project. What tasks are late, what are upcoming, where's my project at? Number 3, you need a place to bring it all together, like a project room or a way to coordinate the overall project team. And number 4, you need to do that for lots and lots of projects, or portfolio, as we say. So if I translate that to SharePoint, the pieces of the project can go into the SharePoint lists. The reports, as we'll see, can be created using SharePoint web parts. And all of the pieces you need, i.e. the list, and all of the reports you build, i.e. the web parts, can be housed in one site or one virtual project room. And then you can have many sites in the site collection, which would equate to your portfolio. So wittingly or unwittingly, the SharePoint team have created a structure that makes it relatively easy to kind of fit project management into it. So now, and that's kind of out of the box, if you like. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to switch to my desktop, and we're going to look at the notion of out-of-the-box SharePoint for managing projects. So I'm in SharePoint, any SharePoint site this will work in, and I'm just going to go Site Actions, New Site, and we'll call it ER, Eastridge. No pun on emergency room, of course. So I do, I pick the team site one, and I do create. So I'm creating an out-of-the-box SharePoint site. Now I'm going to make some changes to it very quickly for project management, and you'll see how I do those. So I've created a site to manage projects. Now if I go into the shared document area, and I do add document, I have a project charter that was hanging around in Microsoft Word, so I'm going to basically load that in as my project charter. That's the first thing I want to do. So now my project charter is in. If I click the task list, I can add a new item, but I find that a little bit slow, to be honest, adding one task, then the next, then the next. So in the task list, I'm going to click on the list ribbon on the top. I'm going to click on list settings. And so I didn't mean to click on list settings. I'm going to click on the drop down here of the views, all tasks, my tasks, and so, but I don't see the one I want, which is a data sheet. I'm going to do create view, and I'm going to create a data sheet view. Now the reason I do this is that most of us are used to using Excel to manage tasks. So I've created a grid view in SharePoint to do that. So we're going to call the first task something imaginative, like task 1. We're going to assign it to Alex, and we say the due date is 1st of December, even though that is past. And we're just going to cheat here because it's an Excel-like grid and just copy those down. And we've created a whole bunch of tasks for our project. And we can maybe give these to Ann Wallace. And maybe we give a few tasks to Christine as well. So relatively easy to kind of create and update tasks. So now what I want to do is I want to do the third item. I want to create issues, and I have no place to create issues, so I just do site actions, more options, and I look for issues list. Let me see. There we go. There's one for issue tracking. So we set up an issues list, and we do create. So we've now created an issues list, and I can just do add new item, and we can just do test issue, and we'll assign that to Ann Wallace. So that is now an issue assigned to the project. So I've done 3 things really. So it's kind of hard to see, but I'm going to make it easy to see. I'm going to go to the home page, and we'll see that I've added documents, tasks, and issues. But I want to bring them out a bit more. So I'm going to, way down the bottom right, it says Customize the Quick Launch. So I'm going to change the top level one to be Initiate. So hang on a second now. I'm just going to, you know what, I set to do not disturb. Sorry about that. Initiate. And then the second one I'm going to set to plan. And the third heading I'm going to set to control. That's the third one. So now, and then the shared documents really was all about a project charter. So we're going to do that. Project charter. The next one, the site pages, you know what, it might be cool to have a wiki, which would be kind of like about this project stuff. That might be cool. And then calendar, tasks, issues, and team discussion. Yeah, I'll have all those. But you know what? I want the issues under control. That's really where they should come. So I do that. And then one final thing, I do change order here. And the first thing I want, of course, is the project charter. And I want the tasks to be above the calendar. And I want the issues to be the first thing under control. And I do OK. And I click Home. And now if you look on the left-hand side, I have Initiate my project with a charter and wiki. I've planned my project with tasks and a calendar. And Control my project with issues and a team discussion. So I'm really beginning to look like a project and feel like a project. And it's only a couple of minutes in. I've got my charter here on the home page. But just do one final thing. I want to add a report of maybe the open tasks. So I do page. I do edit page. And I'm going to just place my cursor down at the bottom of this home page. And I'm going to do insert. And I'm going to insert a web part. And we'll insert a web part to do with the task list. And we'll do add. And we've now just added, and we're going to just go back to page and save and close. So within a couple of minutes, we have created a site in SharePoint. And what the site does is it allows you to initiate, plan, and control your project with the various items. And on the home page, it has a report with the project charter and then the tasks that are open for the project. So as you can see, it's relatively straightforward once you start thinking about it a certain way, in the ways we've been chatting about, to house the project on SharePoint. Now, I'm going to go back to our slide deck. We do content, here we go. Great. So this is where we left off in the slide deck, where we explained the 4 pieces of project management, and then we explained how they would map to SharePoint, and then we did a quick demo of out-of-the-box SharePoint. Now, the second thing we said we cover would be, if that's some of the kind of stuff you get out of the box, and I can see where you're going with this, Eamon, and this makes sense, it's nice to know what we get, but it's also nice to know what we don't get. What we don't get. Now, it's not that we're being deprived, it's just that SharePoint out of the box wasn't designed to do everything. It wasn't designed to be a project management system. It was designed to be a general collaboration system on which you could build different applications. So what did you not get? So if you had a really nice set of tasks with tasks and subtasks and so on, out of the box by design, you wouldn't get a Gantt chart or a picture of all those. We did see that we added tasks, and we could see a list of tasks. We added issues, and we could see a list of issues. But out of the box, you wouldn't get a set of reports, where the reports actually gave you a report, for example, of my work, which would be all your issues, tasks, and deliverables in one report. You can get a report or a view into one list, but not across them. You wouldn't, out of the box, of course, get, or probably get, portfolio reporting. You know, the status of many projects, or all the issues that were overdue across 20 or 100 projects. You know, SharePoint by design doesn't come with a whole bunch of templates for different project types. And it doesn't have metrics and trend history and charting for projects and so on. So you get the kind of stuff I showed you, and then you don't get these things. However, SharePoint itself is really a very strong collaborative platform. As I'm sure your work with Eastridge has shown you. There's lots you can do with it. So you can actually extend SharePoint to do those kinds of things. So if you get started and you kind of like what it's doing for you, in the vein of what I've been showing you, and then you say, you know what, I really need some more stuff, then that more stuff can be extended. Either build it yourself, build it with Eastridge, or have Eastridge, you know, work with you to put in maybe a plugin like this. So how can it be extended? So I'm going to show you 4 quick examples of how it can be extended. Now, what I'll do is I'll overview maybe one of them for a second. And then I won't bring you through all the slides, but they'll be available in the download, and it'd be nice to have. So, for example, if we start here, a tremendous amount of people are managing projects in Microsoft Excel today. Looking at this grid, this line, the spectrum, where the left, not so much management, the right, it's a lot of management. You know, managing projects in Excel is obviously to the left of this line. So we'll show you an example of a template we call Projects Tracker that you could use for that. In the second scenario, we will say, well, how about managing a small project? How about if you had one project to manage, you wanted to manage it carefully, but not over carefully. So we talk about that scenario. Third scenario is, What if you wanted to do so with Microsoft Project thrown into the mix? And the fourth scenario is, what if you wanted to manage a portfolio of projects? And again, you can see the line I have here. Each time I have this line, and what it's doing is it's saying, as you make the decision you want to manage one or more projects, talk to me about how much management do you want. So don't just say you want to manage across projects, because it could be a small amount of management or a lot. So this line just helps us have a conversation around how much you might like. So let me switch back to the demo. And my screen should be appearing on yours now any second. Oops, I don't know what that was. Scary sound, whatever it was. Hopefully it wasn't too serious. I suppose we should look at it right rather than ignore it. The color scheme has been changed. Thank you, Microsoft. I wish you could do that at my house. Change my color scheme if it were that easy. All right, so scenario one, I have people managing projects. They're managing it in Excel. They're doing so because it's real easy. So what do I do is, I give them a grid in SharePoint. Name, project type of project status, project manager, and obviously because it's in SharePoint, it's so easy to change. So we can say, this one is actually being managed by Christine. And then we drag Christine down to these, so she's managing 3 projects, and so on. I've got some times and dates and cost and status update, all the stuff I would have if I were in Excel in that simple grid. But in SharePoint, when I click the Home key, I now get a nice set of dashboards. The dashboards give me traffic light reports, cost charts, Gantt charts if you look down to the very bottom. And it's giving me all of these from that simple grid. So all I have to do is enter the information in the grid, and it was available on these dashboards. And I can get all sorts of other reports also coming from the exact same set of dashboards. So the first scenario is, don't fight with people if they want to use Excel. Let them use Excel, but inside of SharePoint, and that will give you a very, very good starting point. Now, the second scenario is where you say to yourself, they're looking for a little bit more project management. So what I want to do is I want to give them a space to manage a project, a bit like the one we did out of the box SharePoint. So on the left we have project statement, tasks, issues, and docs. And under Project Home, we have a bunch of reports. And here's my home page for the project. And if I click Tasks, same drill, a simple set of tasks, nothing complicated. And I can, go into the data sheet of those tasks like we were looking at a few minutes ago. Except when I click My Work, I now can see all my work for the project, including the issues and the tasks. And if I click the work report, then I can see all the open work for the project. And I can see it, whether it's overdue, open by owner, and so on. So the idea being that with this extension, I have the site we looked at earlier, but I have a whole load of extra kind of neat things added, not the least of which are some important reports. But they're added through the web parts, just the web parts extended. Now, I might, for example, want to manage a project with much more project management. So I could, for example, go into this other template, scenario 3, more structure. If you look, I've got plan my project control, and under control I've got tasks and work breakdown structure, risks, issues, and so on. And if I do edit in Microsoft Project, what's happening now is I've gone into the document library, and in the document library I found a Microsoft Project plan, because this project warrants us having a plan. And I've just opened that plan and click OK and say edit that plan in Microsoft Project. So from within SharePoint, I'm opening that particular plan so that I can see what it's telling me. And then what I can actually do is I can actually then synchronize that with SharePoint. so that the items that are in the plan end up going into SharePoint for me. So that I've got this two-way sync going on between SharePoint and Microsoft Project. So here's Microsoft Project with my tasks and subtasks and some assigned to Alex, and I'm logged in as Alex. If I do File, Sync, then it will synchronize those tasks back in to SharePoint. And if I go back to SharePoint and I look at my Gantt, then I can see the tasks and the subtasks and so on in that particular project area. And if I click My Work, I see all the work that I've got to do, including the tasks that came in from that particular project. And I can click the home page and I get a nice summary of the project. So I get a site with more project management going on, including an optional link to Microsoft Project. And finally, in scenario 4 of this extension, I now have the ability to look across multiple sites. So I've created lots of sites with lots of projects, and I just look across them and say, hey, tell me what's happening in all those projects. And then what I can do is I can actually see what's happening in these particular projects, and I can know what's going on, and at any stage I can drill down into the relevant site. So let me go back and we'll summarize it and then throw it more formally open for questions. So content, here we go. So we looked at 4 slides like this by way of introduction. And if I just summarize what we've done, you know, we looked at why SharePoint, and we discussed that. And we looked at a demo of out-of-the-box SharePoint. We looked at some of the natural boundaries. And we looked at ways SharePoint can be enhanced and extended. And what we'll do now is we just do a quick summary and then take as many questions as you'd like. One of the things that's intriguing about this, and we've found working with lots of our customers, is when you start sharing information about projects in SharePoint, in a positive way, it changes some of the dynamics of the project. So what you might want to do is just consider how you manage those projects. And we've released a free eBook called Collaborative Project Management Guide, and you can just pick that up from the BrightWork website. Also, if you're interested in stories, in fact, one of these is a joint BrightWork Eastridge customer. In fact, if you're interested in stories of how customers have done this kind of work by extending SharePoint, so using base SharePoint and extending it for project management, then on the BrightWork website, you can also download this ebook. Very interesting, really, because, I mean, it's not a product pitch, because obviously there's another part of the website that will do that, but the customers talk about their experiences of putting in project management. They're very instructive. So another way to summarize it would be to say, look, what we've done is we've looked across the project management spectrum, and we've shown you how SharePoint can be used out of the box and extended, and we used 4 templates. And they're the 4 templates we used. Obviously we use templates that we have out of the box at BrightWork. So we use the Project Tracker, Project Light, Project Standard, and Project Office. In fact, actually, that's a mistake. We use the Project Structured. See that 3? That should be over there on top of Structured. My mistake, by the way. Okay. So just before we go into Q&A, just 2 final slides. You could be saying, look, I get it, I understand it, but I do have questions. Like I don't know everything I need to know. So please do ask them now. We'll take questions in a minute. Please do go to brightwork.com and just try these ideas out. There's a link there for free trial. Or just call us or Eastridge with any of your questions. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, I like this, I get it. I've seen some of this before. I've seen some of this kind of thinking, and I'm wondering what's involved. So, working with Eastridge, we've come up with a jumpstart offer, and you can change this obviously by working with Eastridge, but we can have a project office up and running in one of your areas in a few weeks. And the service would include scoping and planning, any installation, the building of some templates to suit your business for individual project management and for that role of reporting, training for some of your team, 50 licenses of the plugin, and a year's worth of support and maintenance. So really a complete deployment project. And all of that for less than 20K, or there's another equivalent for 25K. So that's the software and the support and the professional services or the deployment services. So quite a competitive way to get started. Okay, so the phone lines are open. I don't believe anybody's on mute. and we'd be delighted to take your questions, any questions that you have. I see one question on the Q&A manager. Hang on. Is there a timesheet option available? Yeah. So there is a timesheet option available. Yeah. So you can you can do it in a few ways. You can do it very simply, where folks will just enter their time into a task or into a grid across multiple tasks. Or if you want a really, really, really simple timesheet across multiple projects, you can do that as well. Yeah. So there is that for sure. Any other questions folks would like to ask? And feel free to ask the questions on the Q&A manager or on the phone by just asking your question out on the phone. I think we'll do, Billy, as we're waiting to answer final questions. If you wanted to stop the recording so it doesn't become too long, then you